What's going on, guys? I'm Tyler, and to continue my brand new series of classic movie reviews, as well as talk about some musicals leading up to the release of Hamilton, I'm here to let you know that Funny Girl is not only no perfect movie, I wouldn't even call this one of the greatest musicals of all time, despite what some older, more established critics would seem to think, since AFI considers this one of the greatest musicals of all time and considers two of the songs in this movie to be considered some of the greatest songs from a movie ever, which one of them is for sure, but if I'm being honest, I think movies like Bohemian Rhapsody, Ray, and the second half of A Star is Born owe so much more to this movie because this is such a formulaic, generic biopic about a true life person that tries to cover so much about their lives that it becomes overstuffed and uninteresting because the things that you enjoy most about witnessing what this real life person was like and what their performances were like, it tries to focus on things that don't really either matter all that much or don't even make sense, usually regarding someone's personal life. So, for further context, Funny Girl is about Fanny Brice, played by Barbra Streisand, who quickly rises to become a major star in Broadway revue performances. And after she becomes famous, she enters a self destructive relationship with this charismatic but still very shady gambler, played by Omar Sharif, and for whatever reason, she finds it really tough to decide on whether or not her career is more important or her relationship to this man who loves her, but also leaves her on so many different occasions in order to live his own life and let her live her life without each other being so concerned about committing, which would have been an interesting enough idea to explore in a movie like this, why people are wrong for each other but they stay with each other anyways. But we'll get more into that later. Part of the reason I wanted to watch this, it was either a toss up between Funny Girl or Hello Dolly. I only picked Funny Girl because I had already heard the song Don't Rain on My Parade in a bunch of other movies, but I had heard the Bobby Darin version, not the Barbra Streisand version. Having seen this movie, I still think the Darin version is better because it has a slower, jazzy rhythm to it, and Darin is the type of singer who isn't really concerned what other people think about his voice. He's not going to belt it out like Streisand does, even though she's really good at it, but minor notes there. And when I found out that Fanny Brice was a real life Broadway review performer, I thought that would really be interesting to see what that kind of life was like. For those who don't know, a Broadway review was basically a live variety act. You had singing, dancing, comedy sketches in the exact same show, sometimes in the exact same skit. And that jack of all trades mentality of being in show business is something I miss. We don't really have that many performers nowadays who are actors, singers, and dancers. You have actors and singers, and you have actors and comedians. Sometimes you even have directors and actors or writers and actors. You don't really have an in between. There isn't, for lack of a better term, there isn't as much variety as there used to be. And I thought it would really be interesting to see what that life was like and to see it be translated into a musical. And I will say this, when we do see the Broadway performances, they are easily the highlight of the film. I love the way they portray the audience and the stage in these huge, massive wide shots to show the scope and potential of a Broadway show like this. But when you show the audience, and especially these close ups of people who are really close to Fanny Brice, her friends, her family, her bosses, it puts a lot of pressure on her because she has a lot more to lose, especially when she's trying out for the very first time. And we also get these close ups of Fanny that really show how much being witnessed by so many people for the first time scares her, but how she quickly adjusts to the attention that she receives and the gratitude that she gets from the audience. Because there are times throughout this movie where she does entertain them completely by accident. She's supposed to sing and dance, but instead she makes them laugh because she fucks up her routines. And her bosses understand very clearly that it doesn't really matter whether or not the entertainment value was intentional or not. What matters is she's entertaining people, which is why they keep her out longer. They give her much more to work with, even though she's afraid of it. I respect more than I like the way that she tries to negotiate what her own terms are in regards to what she performs. But sometimes it gets really annoying because Streisand's character is unbelievably stubborn when she is trying to get her foot into the door. She seems to think that she can negotiate with the big bosses over what types of material she can work with. And normally I would appreciate that and think she's strong and independent. I like that. But she's not strong and independent. She's actually very picky and needy. And during some performances, especially in the beginning, you get the sense that she's doing this, entering show business just for the sake of attention as opposed to trying to make millions of people happy, like I just talked about in my Muppet movie review. So a part of it really made her character seem shallow at first, and if I'm being completely honest, that feeling did not go away, but we'll get more into that later on. But in regards to the style of the Broadway performances, they are really well done. They have some nice musical moments as well, particularly one moment where Streisand comes out as a singing bride with a pillow underneath her dress, and the reactions from the performers on stage and the audience was really surprising, but also really funny. I wasn't expecting that, and based on the reactions, you could tell that no one else was expecting that either, and that just adds to the comedy to it. And the songs themselves, even though I don't remember the majority of them, the two that stand out and the ones that everyone praises the most, like People and Don't Rain on My Parade, those are exceptional songs. People is such a really sweet and thoughtful ballad that has this soft melody that offsets Streisand's almost operatic tone in regards to her voice. I like how the two of them blend in with each other, and I also like how it tries to offer an explanation but not a justification as to why Fanny Brice enters this relationship that seems so uncaring, and yet she finds some peace and happiness and some feelings that she doesn't get from the other people in her own life, which seems a little weird at first, but after a while it kind of does make sense. And Don't Rain on My Parade is very cheerful and uplifting because of the whole idea that life is about taking risks. And even if those risks don't pay off, you can say to yourself, well, at least I tried it, instead of sitting on my ass wondering what would have happened if I did or didn't take the chance. So that was what made the song feel warranted, even though the character's feelings were still a little bizarre as to why she would enter a relationship like this in the beginning and almost risk her entire career to go after this one guy who's willing to leave her for the sake of living his own life and letting her live her own. But this is the biggest problem with me personally with Funny Girl. It has so many great ideas, but it doesn't know which ones to focus on more than others. Because for the first half hour, as I keep continuously saying, it is mainly about her trying to get into show business, being the original Rachel Berry in terms of personality traits, which can easily turn off people as I'm saying that, and for good reason. She is stubborn and annoying and really obnoxious, and she really doesn't change throughout the majority of the movie. If anything, it gets worse the more this movie focuses on the relationship, which is actually the major key component. And as I was watching this movie, seeing the boyfriend pop in every 20 minutes, I just thought, let me guess, he's going to overtake the movie at one point, and sure enough, he does. They build a life together full of so many things that become really inconsequential to the story, living in this huge-ass house, having a child who we see like once or twice, and we don't even know what the child's name is. That was really essential. As I said before, the one big song, Don't Rain on My Parade, is where she leaves her career behind for her husband, and then during this one musical montage, she all of a sudden has her job back, and then it's like her storming out on her fellow performers meant absolutely nothing. And that's... Funny Girl tries to say that there are consequences of the overall story, but there aren't. And the one thing I haven't mentioned yet is that Fanny Brice as a character doesn't really have an arc. Her boyfriend Nicky does, because once you meet him for the first time, you look at him and you already assume him to be that charismatic con artist who woos girls and then screws them over and leaves. But over the course of the movie, it becomes really surprising over the fact that even though he keeps leaving her, he never expresses any love for any other woman throughout the course of the movie. In fact, you never hear about any ex-girlfriends of his, you never hear about any potential victims of his that were women, because he's in a strictly male business in regards to gambling and forgery. So that aspect of the movie was definitely interesting and a change of pace in regards to a character like this. And he's the type of character who lives a seedy life, but he doesn't want to. He does want to settle down with this one woman, not because of her money or her status, but because he thinks she's a talented woman who deserves all the attention she gets. But at the same time, he also doesn't want to take pity from her. Whenever he's in a tight situation and she tries to offer money or support, he's really rude and stubborn about it. More stubborn than she is in certain scenes, oddly enough. And that part, again, was interesting, but the problem was he's not the one who's supposed to have an arc. It's supposed to be her. And no matter how many times she hears it from other people, this man is bad, you should be helping him. He's not the one who should be helping you. I never got the sense that she listened from those other people. If anything, there are times where she already knew that for herself. When she's sitting on the couch late at night, he walks in and she, of course, gives this Oscar Beatty monologue about how everyone thought I was in such a bad mood because my own husband wasn't at the performance of a lifetime for me. And yet, 2 scenes later, she completely forgets about it. And I understand it's supposed to be... I know it's supposed to be intentional, but you never get the sense that she learns from it. And I can't really tell if the movie is actually telling us that she's never going to learn and it's supposed to be a cautionary tale, or if the movie's supposed to tell us that deep down she's learned it, but she's not going to say it flat out loud. I'm not one for being spoon-fed these things, but the movie's tone and through Barbra Streisand's performance, I really didn't get the sense that she was learning anything as a character. The ending, sure as shit, didn't make me convinced that she had learned anything. If I'm being honest, her boyfriend learned a hell of a lot more than she does. This is probably going to be a completely useless rant. If anything, it might entertain some people for how off base and how repetitive I get over the course of it, but Funny Girl was just a huge disappointment. It does not age well. Barbra Streisand's performance is as melodramatic as people usually describe her acting. Her facial expressions and body language are on point, and there are so many shots that capture just a close-up of her brightly lit, perfect, and innocent, which again could possibly be on purpose, but her line deliveries are just so over the top and so pretentious. It really... I've said this already, but Barbra Streisand was the original Rachel Berry, and that's not a good thing whatsoever. Omar Sharif was good as Nicky Arnstein, but just looking at him character-wise, you already know for a fact what kind of person he's going to be based on his constant smile, based on his costume design, based on how flattering he is, even when the situation does not call for him to be so suave and charming. The movie is just a mess, and I'd say more about it, but I've already forgotten about it. I usually go on a walk after I watch a movie to collect my thoughts so I can write them down. I had already forgotten half the movie. So yeah, this review is basically a 15-minute rant about the things that I completely forgot and how the things I remembered should not have stuck with me. So, obviously, I don't recommend checking out Funny Girl, even though the music is, for the most part, well done, and the Broadway performances, when they're there, are well done, which really aren't that many. The most impressive shot for me, personally, was during Don't Rain on My Parade, where we start on a helicopter shot of the ferry that Streisand is on, and then it zooms so far into a close-up of her, and then zooms back out as the song's done, and I thought, that was really impressive. Why aren't there more musical numbers being done like this? And I wish I had something to say about the supporting cast, but like most musical biopics about one person, the supporting cast is completely expendable. There was one actor who's supposed to be Streisand's boss and had a funny real-life name. His last name was Pidgeon, but I can't even remember that. What I do remember are some real-life facts that obviously were left out of the movie because they would have messed up the narrative. For example, Nicky Arnstein was not Fanny Brice's first husband or first love, not even remotely close. Why didn't they just keep the first love in there as like a 5-minute thing? It would have been rushed as hell, but it's not like the rest of the movie wasn't rushed anyways. Bottom line, Funny Girl should have either focused on Fanny Brice's rise to stardom or her relationship with Nicky Arnstein. It couldn't do both, and it shouldn't have. And for all those reasons, I'm going to give Funny Girl a 2 out of 5. Thanks for sitting with me on this completely pointless rant. Needless to say, Funny Girl rained on my parade. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of Funny Girl if by any chance you disagree with me. And let me know what's an old-fashioned movie that a lot of people love but you don't, because there are a few, whether we like to admit it or not. Be sure to let me know in the comments below, be sure to stay tuned for more musical reviews, and be sure to like and subscribe. Take care.